Chapter 1. Understanding the ISFJ Personality Type. The letters ISFJ in Jung's and Briggs-Myers personality type theories stand for introverted, sensing, feeling, and judging. Based on these words alone, one can infer that the ISFJ is shy, quiet, sensitive, emotional, and perhaps close-minded. However, the ISFJ need not be strictly defined by these traits. They could also be logical, highly sociable, and acquiescent to new ways of thinking. The ISFJs are known for their humanity, often showing those around them compassion and generosity. They are always ready to offer assistance, support, and comfort to whoever needs it. It's a blessing then that they make up a large part of the world's population. Individuals that belong to the ISFJ personality type are charitable, and they feel fulfillment doing work where they can impart knowledge and kindness. It's not surprising to see these individuals in the fields of academics, social work, and medicine. One of the most noticeable characteristics of the ISFJs is their tendency to be perfectionists. They are fussy when it comes to details, and they will often spend a lot of their time and energy in making sure that all is in order. They usually won't settle for satisfactory quality, but will instead work to attain the best possible results that they are capable of giving. When it comes to work, the ISFJ person takes it very personally. Perhaps this is why ISFJs will always submit work that they can be proud of. At home, the ISFJs are not much different. They show the same fastidiousness in all they do, whether in planning meals or cleaning the house. ISFJs can often become pushovers due to their kind-heartedness. They won't seek recognition for their good works, and cunning people around them can easily take credit for all their efforts. Nevertheless, their excellent work and the right attitude are valued and appreciated by those that know them. People that belong to this personality type will often need to be more assertive to let the world know of their noble actions. The ISFJs need to feel appreciated to boost their confidence and to stay happy. Having an ISFJ for a workmate, friend, or family can be very rewarding. They give the most suitable advice and gifts. This is due to their sensitivity to other people's needs coupled with big-heartedness. Their words of advice are wise and earnest, and the contributions they give are always from the heart. The ISFJs are sure folks. They pull their weight and they make specific what needs to be done is done. And although they are introverted, they can make real friends and have relationships that are truly meaningful. The ISFJs are contented to be backstage, and they never really crave for the spotlight. Nevertheless, they don't want their hard work to go to waste or to go unnoticed. Individuals that belong to the ISFJ personality derive fulfillment when they can do quality work and produce results that can benefit the majority. ISFJs, a general outline. Warm-hearted, courteous, and congenial, ISFJs are often quiet, and sometimes overlooked, individuals whose inner worlds contain a vast amount of personal detail and understanding. Though keen in their understanding of others, ISFJs tend to rely on hunches that come to them automatically, and with high intensity, but which tend to be of a nonverbal nature. This means that when prompted to give their opinions about others, ISFJs can often just give their moral evaluation of someone, along with all the little details they have absorbed about that person's life, such as who they are married to, where they work, if they have children, and where they grew up, and so on. To others, these details may seem oddly irrelevant to the analysis of that person. But to ISFJs, these minutiae are often the only thing they find fit to express, since the rest of their analysis tends to come to them in too personalized a form to share with others. Typically, ISFJs will be found to have one of the best advanced warning radars out of all the 16 types when it comes to deciding whether a given individual can be trusted or not. On the other hand, once they have accepted someone as a genuine friend, ISFJs tend to be very trusting, allowing, and forgiving people. They tend to be quite adept at picking up on the moods, conditions, and emotional states of others, and are often quite skilled at meeting their friends with precisely the kind of aid and reassurance that they are in need of when they are feeling down. ISFJs are generally quite adroit in social situations and often carry themselves with a distinct sense of social etiquette, no matter the setting. Likewise, they usually know what to say and how to act in any social situation to come across as friendly and diffuse any tension. In their personal lives, ISFJs tend to be very particular about what they like and don't like. They often have a distinctive and quite elaborate aesthetic regarding their taste in dress and interior decorating, even if that aesthetic may seem unremarkable to others at first glance. With them, the aesthetic value of something is very often to be found in the discreet and the understated. Frequently, it is only those who pay attention to the minutiae of their arrangements who realize the ingenuity of their compositions. ISFJs tend to enjoy keeping an orderly environment. They can also be very fastidious at times where they will spend long hours making sure everything is just right. Many tend to double-check things and review important information line by line to make sure that nothing is missed and that nobody has made a mistake. Because most ISFJs are intimately oriented towards what others feel, these exacting standards can cause a bit of anxiety in some ISFJs at times. They feel like everything must be in order and live up to the highest possible quality of work. But they don't want to alienate others or be seen as boogeymen who always criticize. As a result, some ISFJs may find themselves in situations where they end up with more and more responsibility for the work and tasks of others as if assignments gravitate towards them, since everyone knows that the ISFJ's attention to such matters is a sure guarantee of a job well done. Like their ESFJ cousins, ISFJs tend to be community-oriented and to see solidarity and comradeship as among the essential virtues of human activity. Everyone should come together and help each other out to form a community-based whole that is stronger than its parts. This social idealism can at times lead them to have a hard time asserting themselves and their own needs in interpersonal settings, as they are continually thinking about what would make others happy, as well as the well-being of the group. Some ISFJs may thus find themselves in situations where they end up caring much more for other people and be taking much more responsibility for them than the other members of the group do in return. Such ISFJs may often struggle to take care of themselves, as well as to make sure that their own needs are being met. Some may even experience a guilty conscience at the prospect of having to prioritize their individual needs. Also, though on some level they know that it is both necessary and fair for them to tend a bit to their well-being before returning to the function that others expect of them again. Socially, ISFJs tend to form strong and profound attachments to those around them, and to find strength in the bonds they have cultivated with others over the years. With their characteristic blend of conscientiousness and empathy, these bonds are often a source of identity, strength, and pride for the ISFJ. While their social commitments to others can be in principle assume any form imaginable, so long as the bond is genuine, many ISFJs tend to draw upon the social archetypes prevalent in their culture for inspiration regarding how to express themselves and carry their commitments. For example, many ISFJs may look to the blueprint of what society commonly understands to be a good mother, father, sister, community member, group organizer, etc., and then consciously model their contributions and social stance on that. ISFJs tend to enjoy supporting others indeed, not merely in words and good intentions, but in caring attention to the specific and concrete problems in the other person's life as well. Since many ISFJs are well organized and have a natural knack for planning and organizing, they will frequently find themselves in various managerial and administrative roles, spanning from simple office clerks to mighty generals and admirals serving their nation's armed forces. They tend to excel in all types of functions where their unique blend of people skills and attention to detail is called for. When serving in such roles, they tend to have an intimate grasp and understanding of material realities, the numbers, facts, and figures, on the one hand, but also an empathetic understanding of the human side of the situation on the other. While ISFJs typically do not like to call attention to themselves and rarely cause much of a stir, many ISFJs have juggled the two considerations, the human and the material, quite artfully while serving in administrative roles. In some cases, this artful balancing of priorities has been carried out so artfully that nobody ever caught hold of the fact that it was going on at all, except for the ISFJ themselves, of course. It is only when the ISFJ stops exercising their influence that others realize how vital and taken for granted it was. ISFJs tend to be naturally focused on the things that are going on in reality around them, rather than some grand abstract ideas or theories. Even when ISFJs are eminent thinkers and philosophers, one can still see the element of lived reality penetrating into their thoughts and permeating their philosophy, as in the cases of Marcus Aurelius and Roger Scruton. ISFJs tend to relate the most intensely to what they have experienced in the past. This is also the reason why many are very particular in their interests, focus, and hobbies. Many ISFJs prefer to develop in-depth domain knowledge of a few select disciplines and to leave the fields they do not know anything about to people who might master those fields. They do not sample a broad range of activities the way many EP types do. ISFJs tend to be cognitively close to their own lived experiences, and many enjoy photography, scrapbooks, diaries, or other means of preserving what they and those close to them have experienced. It is also not uncommon for ISFJs to cherish arts and crafts that require physical attention and finesse, such as handcrafting, scale modeling, or playing a musical instrument. While ISFJs tend to place a premium on the certainty that comes with directly lived experience, many are also interested in history. Though they may become experts at any history that interests them, a significant portion of the ISFJs who dedicate themselves to account tend to eschew the traditional grand-scale, kings and wars and conquests type of history in favor of historical studies of how ordinary people lived and what everyday life was like back then. When studying history, many ISFJs also have a tendency to try and connect what they have learned about the period they have been studying to present life as it appears to us today. and it can often be especially exciting to them to discover how one detail or another that most of us simply think of as a given of reality is actually the result of a specific historical process. In this way, such ISFJ historians are part of a surprisingly small brotherhood of scholars whose work helps ensure that humanity's collective sense of memory is continuous and that the lessons and lives of the past are not forgotten. Dominant psi in ISFJs. Turning now to the question of function arrangements, the ISFJ's dominant function is introverted sensation, psi. While this function has often been stereotyped as the uptight stickler function that passively and unquestioningly adhere to rules, routine, and tradition, the truth is that it is perhaps the function that is the least well understood among contemporary topologists. Whereas extroverted sensation, C, is easy to conceptualize as a keen awareness and attention to one's surroundings, to physical sensations and the body and how they affect us, and the opportunities inherent in the present situation, introverted sensation is much more difficult to comprehend. In a nutshell, while both sensation functions are attuned to personal experience and physical sensations, one fundamental difference is that extroverted sensation places the focus on experiencing the immediate situation to the fullest possible extent, while introverted sensation cautiously withdraws from the present position, preferring to approach it on the basis of how it conforms to previously experienced conditions that were similar in nature. Consequently, the introverted sensation dominant types, that is, ISFJ and ISTJ, are the types with the strongest preference for filtering whatever they experience in the here and now with their internal storehouse of previously lived experiences. More so than all other models, the ISJs use this backlog of personal experiences as a blueprint through which to contextualize and make sense of whatever situation they find themselves in at present. Like all introverted types, they look inward rather than outward. By recognizing how each experience is similar to previous experiences, immense precision can be attained with a comparatively small expenditure of cognitive energy. The upside of this adaptation is that all situations that are inherently continuous and similar can be mastered to an unusual degree by the ISJ types. The downside is that ISJs will often be impassive, lost, or uninterested when finding themselves in entirely new situations where no previously lived experience provides a lodestar for how to react. In this respect, their cognitive orientation towards introverted sensation, psi, is indeed the opposite of the ENP types who, being oriented towards extroverted intuition, ni, tend to get restless, frustrated, or depressed in familiar situations, while experiencing an upsurge of energy in precisely the kinds of radically novel situations that more often than not will leave psi types feeling drained. Because of the precise and detail-observant nature of introverted sensation, both ISFJs and ISTJs will typically be very comprehensive in the projects that they undertake. Often conscientious, many excel at tracking and organizing large amounts of information, and, again unlike the more protein ENP types, genuinely absorbing the knowledge that they use to orient their world to the very core of their cognition. Consequently, while ISJs may be slower with their initial intake of information, once they have absorbed the information and acquired in-depth domain knowledge of a field, they will often be the ones who know it the most intimately of all the types. Such ISJs will usually be capable of processing large amounts of information with a remarkable acuteness and without making many errors. Their first hunch will usually be correct from the get-go, and rarely need much adjustment or revision before it can be applied. It stands to reason that such ISJs are immeasurably valuable as administrators, CEOs, high-level public servants, and the like, as the number of problems they can address in a typical workday will tend to supersede the efforts of more noetic types who have to think through each problem conceptually. Finally, while extroverted sensation is often stereotyped as attention to bodily states, the introverted sensation is often, erroneously, stereotyped as memory. The truth is, instead, that both sensation functions tend to direct a good measure of cognitive energy towards an awareness of the body. It is, however, nevertheless true that all else being equal, extroverted sensation is directed more towards external stimuli that may be found in the environment, while introverted sensation may more easily lead to a fixation on internal bodily states. This fixation may take the form of an incredibly fine-tuned attention to headaches, stomach aches, etc., of every kind, for example. Or it may lead to an unusual amount of cognitive precision with regards to how a particular dietary choice affects the mood and body of the ISFJ. In this way, many ISFJs have an acute grasp of the root biological factors that lead to many of the more advanced psychological states, such as moods and states, brain fog, difficulty or ease of sleeping, and so on. Auxiliary fee in ISFJs. Extraverted feeling, fee, is a cognitive orientation towards sentiment, mood, and emotion directed towards interpersonal and societal situations, also sometimes referred to as the external environment. The sentiments that are likely to appear particularly noble to extraverted feeling are those who have an impact on the mutualistic bond between people, those that can be shared, expressed, and communicated in a positive, warm, and tangible way, sentiments where the intentionality and goodwill behind them are immediately palatable to others. In this way, extroverted feeling is very much like a language, whereas the idiosyncratic and subjective nature of introverted feeling, phi, very much rests with the unique selfhood of the individual and cannot be understood objectively in the same way. Since ISFJs combine dominant C with auxiliary phi, this unique constellation tends to make them quiet and receptive on the one hand, yet also very empathetic and congenial on the other. Their outward behavior will often be very courteous and socially graceful. Yet, beneath the well-mannered exterior, there is also a genuine will to get to know the personality traits of the people in their lives, to take stock of what makes the other person happy, and to show goodwill and fellow feeling through making considerate allowances for that. In this way, ISFJs often show their amiability and fondness for others through merely making such benefits matter-of-fact, without calling any attention to them whatsoever, thus acting in a way that quietly shows that the ISFJ has absorbed the things that make the other person happy, without making much ado of it. It is of such gestures that peaceful atmospheres and warm relations are established. As we also touched upon earlier, another aspect of the ISFJ's introverted sensation/extroverted feeling constellation tends to manifest in how they dress. Among those ISFJs who have a definite and conscious sense of style, many tend to compose looks that are pleasing, understated, and beautiful from a traditional, perhaps even slightly impersonal perspective. In this way, the typical sartorial aesthetic of ISFJs tends to be the opposite of that of the ESFP, which is often purposefully experimental and loud. Generally speaking, ISFJs do not seek to make a statement with their clothing. Indeed, many seem to effortlessly gravitate towards creating a pleasing and harmonious look that contributes to the backdrop and atmosphere of the social situation, rather than vociferously upsetting the mood of the case and forcefully laying claim to other people's attention. While their personal views may run the gamut with regards to political opinions and gender roles, Most ISFJs tend to dress in a conventional manner for their gender and usually embody a somewhat traditional sense of masculinity or femininity in their appearance. Their stylistic orientation often gives them an incredibly down-to-earth appearance and, whether ultimately correct or not, an impression of dependability and honesty. Many female ISFJs will at first glance embody a very feminine, girl-next-door vibe, whereas male ISFJs tend to appear classically masculine, yet in a soft and friendly way that may come off as ordered and well-composed. They rarely use their aesthetic to tout a strong personal vision or some positive emotion, but instead embody a welcoming, comforting, and relatable look which becomes almost an archetype of its own. One of caring patience and the wisdom of the hearth. Many INTP and ENTP types, which may be socially awkward themselves, tend to be very appreciative of the calmness and acceptance communicated by this aesthetic and can often enjoy socializing with ISFJs because of this earthy quality. Likewise, it is far from unheard of that these types choose each other as mates. With their generally pleasant and affable nature, ISFJs can sometimes have a hard time coping with conflict among their loved ones and being direct about their opinions. Many dislike it intensely when people argue with each other, express disagreement in cutthroat me versus you type of way, or behave rudely. Animated by their distaste for such shenanigans and spurred on by their interpersonal sensitivity, ISFJs can become unusually riled up in a morally righteous and outspoken manner that forms a contrast to their usual more soft-spoken personality, if such abrasiveness goes on for too long. When ISFJs rise to become outspoken in this manner, it is usually out of a sense of social concern, because they feel that such dynamics have been allowed to linger for far too long, and because they think that others are causing distress for selfish reasons, and at the expense of the social dynamics of the group as a whole. In their minds, groups should build each other up through shared experiences and by creating a sense of loyalty and belonging amongst the members of the community. To ISFJs, individuals who sour social relations by spreading strife and negative emotions may be said to be acting in a far more destructive way than they realize. Tertiary T in ISFJs. The ISFJ's tertiary function is Introverted Thinking, T, which, according to the model of function arrangements championed by the site admins, and possibly Marie-Louise von France as well, is typically hovering on edge between the conscious and unconscious parts of the psyche. The best way to explain the prevalence of introverted thinking in ISFJs is to contrast it with how their ISTJ cousins are characterized by extraverted thinking, T. Like ISFJs, the ISTJs are also very often aware of the importance of outward hierarchies, procedures, and systems of organization. But when compared to their ISFJ counterparts, ISTJs are on average even more attached to such structures, seeing the structure itself as both means and ends, whereas ISFJs tend to be a bit more fluid in their approach to these structures and more cognizant of the human elements that have to navigate these structures, as well as the interpersonal dynamics that are likely to arise within them. For example, while ISTJs may take stock of the workplace hierarchy and then reason that since they are someone's superior, they can simply tell them what to do with abandon, ISFJs are more likely to reason that a hierarchy is not necessarily a one-way street, and that subordinates also need support and encouragement from their leaders. The ISTJ is more inclined to become impatient with such considerations, reasoning through introverted feeling, phi, and extraverted thinking, T, that others are there to do a job and that, by not merely doing what they're told, subordinates are failing to adhere to organizational values such as efficiency, loyalty, attention, and dedication. Faced with the same predicament, ISFJs will typically be a bit more receptive to how their subordinates see things, remembering that for teamwork and camaraderie to flourish, it is essential that everyone gets along and has positive emotional associations to their organization and their group. As the American typologist Boy Akinwand has said in his work on typology, introverted thinking tends to perceive exterior objects in reality, not merely from the objects themselves, which is what T and Phi would be more inclined to do, but through blueprints of idealized Platonic structures. Since both organizations and the people who are employed in them may thus lend themselves to such idealized Platonic representation, it follows that the priori emotional needs of the employees must be recognized as valid. In this way, the goals and ends of organizations and the emotional constitutions of the people within them are all cognized as a form of impartial principle by the ISFJ, standing outside of more mundane considerations like who is technically the master of whom. For the organization to conform to the policy, the people within it must feel and think in a certain way. They must feel encouraged, or the whole edifice will fall apart and appear increasingly corrupt in comparison with its Platonic blueprint. Needs won't be met, and people won't have the support and guidance that would otherwise allow them to contribute their best to the goals of the organization. Introverted thinking also helps ISFJs in more personal respects. The introverted sensation and the extroverted feeling standing at the top of their cognition. Most ISFJs tend to be focused on personal experience, as well as on the empirical and the factual. It is here that introverted thinking can provide a sense of balance, prompting ISFJs to step out of the practical perspective, which is the most natural to them, and to see things from a more archetypical perspective, understanding what relevance and worth an item has, not just in its concrete empirical context, but in the noumenal scheme of things as well. Inferior knee in ISFJs. Finally, we turn to the secondary function of ISFJs, which is that of extroverted intuition, knee. According to all function models that are Jungian, the secondary role will, as a rule, be wholly unconscious. Socially, extroverted intuition is probably the most immediately obvious in ISFJs in the way that they, under the right conditions, can become animated, purposefully silly, and bubbly. When in this mode, they will often come across as the very contradiction of their usual, more restrained and inhibited personality, appearing hyper-energized and unhampered, as if ready to have the time of their lives. This side of the ISFJ is rarely visible for everyone to see, however, and as a rule, it will only be the people closest to them who have ever experienced the thrill of seeing them in this state. As with all inferior functions, extroverted intuition can also be more of a mixed blessing for ISFJs. It can at times give them a particular difficulty with novelty, especially in moral and intellectual affairs. It will often be more comfortable for the ISFJ to merely go along with what they have already concretely experienced and adapted to their uppermost functions, and to let the sleeping dogs of unfamiliarity lie. Inferior extroverted intuition can also make ISFJs appear excessively pessimistic and worried at times, especially about the future and how nations, corporations, the environment, and the globe will fare in the face of oncoming and unfamiliar challenges. In general, ISFJs tend to think regarding sustainability and solutions that have already been proven to work. If the trail from one state of affairs to the next is not known to human experience, this may cause them to regurgitate intensely on how things are going to work out. In such cases, the unconscious nature of their extroverted intuition will mean that these scenarios will appear uncontrollable to them, as well as possibly teeming with danger. In the same vein, their inferior extroverted intuition may cause them to worry excessively about black swans. That is to say, statistically unlikely occurrences, such as an asteroid hitting the Earth and causing an extinction event, or the entire monetary system collapsing, leaving humans in need of more archaic forms of payment. Even though both ISFJs and ISTJs have inferior extroverted intuition, ISFJs will tend to experience these problems more intensely than other ISTJ counterparts. This is because the extraverted thinking / introverted feeling constellation of ISTJs allows them to stay a bit more grounded and nested in their practical experience of reality, whereas ISFJs, as previously mentioned, also gain a platonic and noumenal perspective on what they experience through their orientation towards introverted thinking. Thus, whether justified in this belief or not, ISTJs will on average tend to feel that they have a bit more control over how things will turn out, whereas on balance, ISFJs will see the same future as more overwhelming and in more of a threatening light. More mature ISFJs sometimes report that, as they start learning more about themselves, these problematic tendencies can be turned on their heads as they learn to recognize these worries and ruminations as the first steps of a generative process which helps them broaden the scope of their horizons and to consider alternatives they would not otherwise have thought of. In this way, highly developed ISFJs can thus learn to turn their inferior intuition into a positive asset, knowing that there is always more than one way of looking at something, and that possibilities they would not otherwise have thought of may be precisely the thing that is needed to keep every skill and domain that has hitherto been mastered moving forward. ISFJ personality type. Approximately 13.8% of the general population are ISFJs. ISFJs are a kind, loyal, serious, and hardworking type of individual, dedicated to helping and supporting the people around them. They are solid and consistent in their approach to both tasks and relationships, and focus their considerable energies on providing hands-on, practical help to others and to the organization for which they work. ISFJs are often known for their gentle nature and small but constant acts of kindness. They offer their quiet support in everything they do or to everything with which they are involved. They are very self-efficating, and rarely do they put themselves in the limelight, preferring to stay behind the scenes contributing in a steady, practical manner. They are quite often extremely sensitive to their own emotions, since the information they gather and the store has a very personal and value-based flavor to it. When alone, they sort through the information their senses have taken in and are usually able to recall, in minute detail, the specific words used in a conversation, the way the wind moved the leaves on a tree, or the colors of the grass as the wind moved it. ISFJs are traditionalists and maintain a sense of history and continuity between themselves and their past experiences. They place a high value on the conservation of tradition through ritual and ceremony, and are often the initiators of these events in their professional and personal lives. Responsible followers of society's rules. They are accountable to their community and are often found contributing their time and energy to worthy causes. ISFJs always want to do the right thing and meet the expectations society places on them. They tend to live by the shoulds and ought tos of life and expect that everyone else does as well. Because they are such hard workers and have an extremely strong work ethic, ISFJs easily take on responsibility for the things that must be done, whether these things fall within the scope of their job or not. They are willing to work extremely long hours to accomplish their work. If they commit to do something, they will complete it on schedule despite the cost to themselves. To ISFJs, work builds character, and being productive while in the service of others is reward enough in itself. Play must be earned to be truly enjoyed, ISFJs may be the least hedonistic of all the types, and are often found working long after everyone else has gone home. Security, certainty, clarity. ISFJs are very security-oriented and may be found in the same job throughout their entire career because they need an excellent reason for making a change. Their actions are always practical and sensible. Of all the types, they are the most thorough, painstaking, and hardworking. They not only stay in the same place, but also tend to stabilize everything with which they come into contact. They will not enter into anything without careful consideration, and rarely are they impulsive in their decisions. Once they commit to something, it is unlikely they will be discouraged or deterred from their course of action. ISFJs like things simple, clear, and concise. They want their facts to be accurate, and they have excellent memory and recall. They quietly absorb information and use it to form their ideas, which, once in place, are entirely unchangeable. Their values are rock solid, which can make them quite slow to change or adapt to another person's point of view. Conservative and traditional. They are conservative in their approach to most things and like to uphold traditions by using their practical judgment and a common-sense approach. They are unflappable during a crisis and lend their stability to fixing things and moving on in an orderly fashion. They are not likely to move forward until they have established this order. ISFJs deal with most minor issues quickly and decisively. With things of greater importance, they will put off planning until they have the information they need. They will not be pushed to decide they are uncomfortable with, especially if it involves their family and friends. Being traditionalists, ISFJs like to do things by the book. They value the established way of doing things over whether it is efficient or effective. They are not unusually tolerant of those who break with procedures and will become internally distressed when this happens. Ignoring procedures is tantamount to breaking the law for them, and their inability to say anything about it can lead to physical stress in the form of muscle tension and fatigue. Worry, worry, worry. ISFJs are usually smart shoppers who know the value of $1. Because of their tendency towards pessimism, they are generally prepared for the worst and have a nest egg socked away for emergencies. They tend to be worrywarts that will take on the problems of others, sometimes to the point of depression and exhaustion. To make sure they meet their need to be secure, ISFJs take a methodical approach to life, to managing their lives, and to the amount of worrying they have to do. They set daily, weekly, and yearly goals in advance, and are rarely without a plan or checklist outlining how they will do something. They make sure they have attended to all relevant details before moving forward. They know things might change, or aspects of their plan may need to be altered. However, because they have all of the bases covered, they will rarely be caught off guard. Take care of the foundations first. Their slow, methodical approach to everything they do can be very distressing to other types, who are more spontaneous and impulsive. ISFJs can be immovable and irritate others who want to get going and make progress. ISFJs only move ahead when they are assured their actions are of value to the people they serve. What is practical and deliberate to ISFJs can be annoying to other types. ISFJs enjoy their leisure time, but only take it once they have fulfilled their work obligations. They often need to schedule time for pleasurable activities, because their own need to relax and have fun is low on their list of priorities. They tend only to see the work needing to be done, and do not rest until it has been completed to their satisfaction.